In this video, we're going to talk about a brand new MMO called CorePunk. We're going to talk about what it is, what it isn't, why you should care, and what the developers should fix going into the full release. CorePunk is an isometric open-world MMORPG that seamlessly blends elements of MMORPGs, MOBAs, and ARPGs. After about 20 hours in the game, I've got a lot of opinions about it, some good, some bad, which is to be expected for a game launching into early access. This is a game that has a lot of potential if the developers listen to player feedback. CorePunk reached out to me and asked me to play the game and share it with you. So massive shout out to CorePunk and Artificial Core for sponsoring this video. CorePunk is available in early access right now, so you can click the link in the description down below and pick up the game and start playing it for yourself. So what is CorePunk? Well, you're going to get a screen like this at the beginning where you're going to get to choose your character. You've got 3 classes to choose from right now. It shows up as 6 different characters. That's because there's a male and female version of each class. And then in the classes, there's subversions of them. So for this class, I could choose between the Two-Handed Destroyer or the Ranger. I went ahead and chose the Ranger. The class that you choose determines which 4 abilities you're going to be starting with. Your character starts with 4 abilities, and then it looks like you can unlock a couple more later on. Character creator is serviceable. It's nothing crazy impressive, but it's not bad, right? It's a top-down MMO, so you're not going to care too much about what your character's tiny details look like. Once you're in the game, you're going to get a slew of pop-ups that tell you basic information about how the world works, how you move. It's basically a tutorial condensed into 10 or so pop-ups that attack fairly relentlessly when you enter the world. I think all of this is good information, but I do think that they could deliver it a little better or maybe a little more well-paced out. You'll spawn in front of a big robot that you need to talk to. He's going to give you a quest, and he's going to ask you to run up the trail and talk to another guy, and he's going to give you another quest, and so on. It's got your typical MMO formula as far as talk to NPC, pick up quests, and he oftentimes asks you to go kill things or talk to other NPCs to continue that quest line. Where it differs from other MMOs is the amount of detail it's going to give you about that quest. So this is an MMO where you're not going to see exclamation points over people's heads. You're not going to see big yellow circles on your minimap telling you need to go here and kill the 6 boar. Instead, they're just going to say something like, go kill boar. Where are the boar at? They're in the woods. Where are the woods at? Go figure that out. It's somewhere not where you're standing right now. So if you're craving that classic MMO questing experience that's a little less handholdy, a little more focused on exploring the world for yourself and discovering where things are, then you're going to love the questing formula that this game is delivering. It's a much more slower paced game. I would say perhaps almost even to a fault at this point. I think that's one of the things I would have them change before its full release is the pacing of the game. And I understand that that's likely partly due to the fact that the game is in early access, and so they're trying to curtail the speed at which you're able to get through the game, right? They're trying to slow you down a little bit, and they're stretching out the content a little more than I would like to see them do. For example, during my playthrough, it took me close to 20 hours to get to level 10, at which point I found out the developers had wiped my character in the middle of my review. So to give you perspective on how long it takes to get to level 10, for example, I played my full 20 hours to get to level 10. It took a really long time. Each individual quest took perhaps an hour, not because the quest should have taken an hour, but because it just took that long to figure out where I was supposed to go for that quest and who I needed to talk to. And sometimes it would say something like, go search the building below someone's house for a mat. And I looked for hours for that mat, and I never found it. And I have a quest log full of quests like that where I never did figure it out. There was a lot of quests that I just picked up, and then eventually I did figure it out. Eventually I did accidentally stumble onto the thing, and every single person in town has a quest, and there are a lot of people in town. So you have a little bit of quest bloat. It can be really overwhelming early on. So what I did was I ended up picking up every single quest in town. And this actually started working to my benefit because while I was trying to figure out a quest, I would accidentally figure out another one, right? I have 20 quests in my log and I kill an enemy and it's like, boop, oh, you just got a quest item. Oh, cool. I stumbled onto an enemy that I needed to kill for a different quest. And so there was definitely some satisfaction in having those 20 quests. I was constantly stumbling into something that I needed to do for a different quest while trying to figure out an entirely different quest. So all of that to say that even when I was stuck on a quest, I was accidentally progressing a different quest, which felt pretty good. This game is definitely inspired by MOBAs. Your inventory, your skills, combat, all of it is very MOBA inspired. Even the shops that you buy things from. If you look at your skill bar, you've got QWER down there. You've got 4 abilities, 3 of which are your regular use abilities, and then 1 of which is like your ultimate with a full 1-minute cooldown on it. You can level these abilities up, so each time you level up, just like in a MOBA, you get to spend a point on one of those abilities to make it more impactful, more powerful and even shorten its cooldown. So if you've played a MOBA like Dota 2, Dota 1, League of Legends, right, you're gonna see the similarities there in a big way. Itemization in this game works like a MOBA as well. What you do is you get these items and you put them in those 6 slots over to the bottom right there. The first one there is your weapon, and then the other 6 are items that this game calls artifacts, and these are what make your character stronger. All of your player power that is item based either is coming from your weapon or from your artifacts, at least in the time that I've playing, which is the first 20 hours. All of the armor that I found, all of the gear that changes the way your character actually looks, that's purely cosmetic as far as I can tell. There's no stats on any of that, at least none that I got in the first 20 hours. So the artifacts can do things like increase your health. They can increase your damage. Like it'll say this is 6 attack power. So it gives you literally 6 damage to your attacks. And you can get 6 of the same one and put it in there. And so that's what I did. I stacked 6 different attack power artifacts. And every time you find one of these artifacts, there's different degrees of quality that it can have, and therefore different amounts of attack power. So you end up finding more than 6, but then you'll find some that give you 10 attack power and some that give you 5. And so you keep the better ones that rolled better and you equip those. So you have this form of progression going on artifact wise. Even when you've already got all 6 slots filled up, you're finding better versions of the same artifact to continue improving your damage. As I touched on, the combat is very MOBA inspired in that, you know, it's much about plinking away at your enemies, getting that hit, dodging them, kiting them. There is no regen in this game, which is another thing that I'm not a huge fan of, the way that they've got the health regen working in the game at the moment. If you take enough damage, your character simply will not regen it. And same with your mana. And so if you want to regen your health and your mana, then you're going to need to use one of your crafted items that you've brought along with you to get your health and your mana back, or you're going to need to go back to town and sit by a fire to regen your health and your mana that way. This has 2 effects on your gameplay. One is the positive effect of every hit counting. So you enter each battle very strategically. You do your very best not to get hit by the enemy, because each hit against you is some of your HP gone, which means you're going to have more downtime ahead of you if you're letting yourself get hit a lot, right? Because it's not going to regen. You're going to have to stop and use some of your consumables that you had to craft, which is a feat all by itself, because in order to craft something, you need to go and harvest those materials, collect them, then you need to go to town, you need to make them. And so all of that is taking time. So you really do focus on trying to avoid getting hit at all costs while you're in battle to make your leveling up more efficient. The downside of the way they've set this up is it's just very slow. You end up having to stop and sit and regen your health very slow. I think that if I had my way before this game went into full launch, I would greatly expedite the speed at which you regen health outside of combat. In combat, keep it the way it is. Keep the combat impactful, dynamic, where you are afraid to have 3 enemies on you at once. I love all of that. It's very classic MMO feeling. But outside of combat, I don't think that really anything is gained by making you wait 20 or 30 seconds while your health slowly ticks up at a snail's pace. I think it's slowing you down for the sake of slowing you down. It's not ideal. And I should mention, as I'm going through this video, I'm going to mention the good things with the bad things rather than do like all the pros and then all the cons, because I don't want the video to end on a negative note, because there's a lot that this game is doing right. But another thing that I would absolutely change is when you go to town after you take a bunch of damage, you can use an ability there. It's on my F1 in the right side. I can use that to go to town once every 30 minutes. I think that cooldown is way too long. You'll notice that all of my feedback involves cutting down downtime, not speeding up the gameplay, just cutting down the downtime. Because every time you have downtime is a moment where you ask yourself, should I play something else? Should I be doing something else? And this game right now in its current design has a lot of downtime that could easily be cut down without having any significant effect on the rest of the gameplay. So one big version of that has to do with the campfire in town. You teleport back to Big Mama's, she's got a big fire there, and you sit down and your health goes up at a snail's pace. Why? What is the good side of making you sit there for a full minute while your health goes up? And you really have nothing to do while you're sitting there for that minute except twiddle your thumbs. I would absolutely change this. When it comes to these fires in town, your health should go way faster than they do when you're out in the wilderness, because I can't think of a single downside to your health just going up instantly when you touch one. If you don't want it to be instant, then make it 20 times faster than the current state. Just anything to minimize the time you spend doing nothing for the sake of doing nothing would be good. Just that alone would reduce so many minutes where I was sitting around doing nothing while playing this game. Another thing that has to do with the pacing of this game is the questing system. So we touched on the questing briefly earlier. It has a very traditional MMO questing in terms of pick up quests from NPCs, go out, complete them, come back. We've all done that this game is a lot less handholdy, which means you're going to be spending a lot more time figuring it out. And so I think the pacing for leveling up will get a lot better once all of the answers are online, right? There was a lot of times where I didn't know how to complete a quest. And if I had known how to just complete one quest after another, after another, after another, I think the leveling speed would have been much more pleasant in this game than it was as someone playing for the first time with no guides out because it's not been launched yet. So there's really no information on how to do anything in the game. And so completing each individual quest was a monumental task. Something as simple as killing a few enemies. Where are those enemies? Or collecting wood. Well, where is the wood? That was easy, but then when you collect the wood, you don't necessarily get the wood that you need. Or killing turtles. I killed turtles for an hour looking for turtle meat, only to find out that I was killing the wrong turtles. I was at the wrong pond. I went over to another pond and started killing the turtles there, and they instantly started dropping the turtle meat. So it was a full hour of my life just killing these turtles thinking, man, the drop rate on this is atrocious, but I didn't know I was killing the wrong turtles. So the quests involve a lot of confusion that will easily be clarified by wikis or websites. And I think that'll greatly speed up leveling. But even still, you complete a quest and it would give you 100 to 200 XP, and it would require 3,000, 4,000 XP for a level. So that's a lot of quests. And when you kill an enemy, it gives you 11 XP. Maybe 11 XP, if that. And so progress is really slow. But then adding to the discussion of that is another thing where you could cut down downtime is when you go back and get your body, like we're looking at right here. I died, which was painful enough. I was trying to kill enemies and they killed me instead of me killing them. Then you respawn at a cemetery-like thing, and then you have to run back to your body. So that's time loss because you have to run back to your body, which is unfortunate, but that's fair. And every time you die, you have a chance to drop materials. Sometimes you drop one material, sometimes none, sometimes multiple materials that were in your inventory. And sometimes they're really valuable materials. Then when you get back to your body, you pick up your corpse and it spawns you for some reason with like 20% health. And I don't understand. I don't understand why it spawns me with 20% health. This is like triple punishment now for that death. I lost the time it took me to run back to my corpse. I lost the items potentially that I dropped when I died. And now I'm spawning with 20% health, which means I'm losing the time it takes me to get back up to full health, which takes a while if you're using a campfire or some ingredients, right? That's another 30 seconds to 1 minute of downtime, another punishment. And it's consuming materials. If I do this, right, I'm consuming some of the materials that I collected and then used to craft a consumable. So that's more time that is lost. It's the time that was spent making that consumable and the time that was spent gathering the materials for that consumable. So there's so many layers of punishment for death. I think it's too much. I think they should pick one. Is it going to be the run back to your corpse? Is it going to be the item that you drop? And I think they can drop the other punishments like spawning you back with 20% health when you run all the way back to your corpse and resurrect, because this just leaves you open to dying again. If it's a player that killed you, they can kill you again. If it's a mob that killed you, they can kill you again. Now the game has a nice, massive open world. It's beautifully built. I love the art style that the game has. I think it's really nice. Got good level of detail. There's a couple different biomes that I discovered as I was running around. I discovered farmland. I discovered rivers, lakes, forests, right? There's all these different kind of areas that had their own look to them, and they were all really well made, really attractive. I think they did a good job on the art style. The sound design is solid. I thought that was all fine. The game does seem to lean into allowing you to PvP. I heard there are dungeons in this game. Somewhere along the way, you run into dungeons. I never made it to one of those in 20 hours. That's another thing I would change if I was them. I think you should get to dungeons well before the 20-hour mark. I think you should get to something way sooner than that. I also never ran into a single boss fight in the first 20 hours of the game. And I think that you should run into a boss fight in this game in the first 20 minutes. Another thing that I really love that the game did is it has talent trees for your character. So aside from choosing which skills you want to level up first, your QWER abilities, you can level each one of those. As you level up, you get points to spend on those and make them more powerful and have shorter cooldowns. And then also you have the ability to open up a talent tree. Each time you level up, you get to choose from different talent trees. And this is a really cool system. At first, you start with one talent tree, and then at level 10, you unlock a second talent tree, and you get higher level, and you can unlock a third talent tree. You can pick from a wide variety of trees to start with, and then each time you level, you have 3 options to choose from. And they did a good job of making these interesting choices, whether it was increasing your attack speed, increasing crit chance, increasing the amount of healing over time that you get after killing an enemy. These were compelling choices that made me think, that would be nice to have, but so would that be. And so anytime I'm playing a game and I want more than one of the options I'm allowed to choose from, they've done a pretty good job of setting those options up for me. And I appreciated that about this game. There's yet another talent tree for your weapons where I could unlock passives for my QWER abilities down there. So for my bullet shot there, my Q ability, I could choose to grab more passives that increased its effectiveness, or I could grab more passives that increased the damage or the radius of my rain of arrows ability. So there's these different passive trees that you can progress for each ability. It's a linear tree, and it's just a time gated thing where you could kind of hard focus on upgrading your rain of arrows, or you could kind of mix it up and make your bullet shot more powerful or your rain of arrows more powerful. The passives that they give you for these are pretty interesting, whether it's increasing the radius, increasing the damage it does to the enemy, or adding an acid dot to it. All kind of interesting things that you can get from that talent tree. Now, when you're playing the game, you're going to get tons of items. You look at my inventory right now, it's got loads of crafting materials. Almost all of those are very, very redundant. At least it felt like to me. If you use them without cooking something out of them, they'll almost always just give you very marginal amount of mana back over time. And so it's not really worth using them without cooking something up. And so what you end up doing is you end up cooking things with those materials that have substantially more benefit to your character. However, when you cook things, it seems like I had 10 recipes that all more or less did exactly the same thing. They all gave me 10 health back per second for 20 seconds or 15 seconds or 25 seconds, right? Very little in the way of diversity between the effects of the cooked items. I think there could be a lot done there to make it feel more impactful when I decide to make a sushi roll instead of a piece of bread. As of right now, there's not a really interesting difference between the two. One is just a lot more work to make. Right now, CorePunk describes itself as an isometric open-world MMORPG that seamlessly blends elements of MMORPGs, MOBAs, and ARPGs. And I think all of that is very fair to say. It also says that the game is built around an open, seamless world, character development, and progression through leaderboards in both PvE and PvP, session-based game modes, such as PvE/PvP extraction instances, PvE party, and solo instances and battlegrounds. I didn't see any battlegrounds in my first 20 hours. I didn't see any instances. I didn't see any extraction content in my first 20 hours. So it's either not in the game yet or it needs to be pulled forward for the players. I think that all of those things sound really interesting. I just never saw any of them while I was playing. So I'm not sure if those are in the game or not yet. They said they want to release the full version of the game 1 year after the launch of the early access. So they are planning full release at the end of 2025. As you see my character running around here, you'll see I'm running into different types of enemies. In the field biomes of the farms, I will run into rats or gnats. And if I venture out further into the forest, I'll start running into boars and wolves. So each biome has its own type of mobs. And we touched on the crafting system a little bit, but the crafting system in this game is really interesting and maybe even a little bit frustrating. It kind of depends on what kind of player you are. So I crafted a bow and it was an upgrade for my current bow and it crafted really well. So it had great damage on it. Then I crafted the next tier upgrade, the next bow, this composite bow that was supposed to be even better than the bow I had. But because that bow crafted poorly, it ended up being worse than the bow I was using. So I spent all this time, energy, and materials crafting something that ended up being worse than what I was wearing just because of the RNG involved in the crafting system. I thought that felt really bad. And if I was the developers, what I would do is I would make it such that the damage windows on crafted items would be the bottom of that next tier is higher than the ceiling of the previous tier. This way, when you go through the effort of crafting the next tier of a weapon, you're guaranteed to get something better than what you were wearing, which is the exact opposite of what happened to me. And after the number of hours that it took me to assemble the materials to craft that item, this was a pretty deflating moment for me. And I don't think a lot of people are going to appreciate that. One thing that I love about this game so far is going to be its monetization model. It's going to be buy to play. So you buy the game. Right now, I see it on their store for $35 and you can play all the content forever. And then they're going to subsidize future content by selling cosmetics in the cash shop. And their plan is no pay to win. That sounds great. All in all, I think that this game is doing a lot of things right. I think it has a lot of good ideas. I like the impactfulness of combat. I like that you treat each encounter as important because strategically, if you accidentally pull two mobs, that could be the end of you, especially if they're similar level to you. And if they're higher level than you, get ready to run. And same thing if you're fighting one mob at a time, you tend to really make an effort to not get hit. And I really appreciate having to try in an MMO game again. It's been a long time since an MMO's PvE content made me try, especially the solo stuff, right? It's the case right now where any MMO you name, whether it's World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, ESO, if you're in the open world content, you can pretty much turn your brain off and just like close your eyes, spam any number of abilities, and you're going to get through whatever fight you're in without even coming close to dying. It's really nice to have to try. As the game is right now, there's just a lot of downtime that can easily be minimized and be truncated and be condensed so that the players are spending a lot more time playing the game and doing the fun things in the game, which are engaging with the combat system that they've designed so well, and less time sitting at a campfire waiting for your health to go back up because you just fought 3 groups of mobs and now you need to heal, or you fought one mob that was equally level but particularly quick, and so now you've got to bust out a campfire and sit there again. This is all early access pacing issues. These should be pretty easy for them to address, and hopefully they do. That's just my 2 cents as someone that played the first 20 hours of the game, got all the way to level 10, unlocked multiple talent trees, tried out a couple different builds for the Ranger. All in all, there's some real bright spots in this game. There's some real potential to it, and I'd love another great MMO to be out there among the rest of them. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys like about the game. I'm really curious to hear your guys' feedback based on what you've seen so far. And if it looks fun, be sure to click the link down in the description below. You can pick it up for, like I said, it's only 35 bucks. So you can easily get your money's worth out of it if you find that you enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to be kept up to date on all the latest news for MMOs, RPGs, and ARPGs, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're not sure what to do next, maybe check out one of the videos popping up on screen right now. I hope to see you in the next one.